Hello and welcome to this 7.5-minute thesis presentation given to an ex-military audience on the 7th of February 2019. The thesis is currently entitled Beyond Being the Best, Educating for Narrative Repair and Transition from British Army to Civvy St, and is based on my own experience of that transition. It's for my doctorate in education and my name is Graham Cable. Now, why is this an issue? Why do so many service people struggle with transition? What many people, certainly in academia, describe the armed forces as are total institutions. Effectively, it means that you can live, as we all know, your entire life behind the wire or on a naval ship. You work, you socialise, you study, you sleep, you do everything behind that wire, you eat, and very often families live in that same environment. So for the service person and families, it is an all-encompassing, totalising career and total institution. That makes it different from most, if not all, other jobs. And another key feature, of course, is ultimately that people in the services have to be prepared to kill and to be killed, which again is unlike most, if not all, other jobs. Now, in order to do this, the forces and both society rightly expect and create what is termed a civil-military gap. So it's a kind of us and them environment, inside, outside the wire. We go and do crazy stuff so that you guys can crack on with your day-to-day life. Now, in order to create that situation, the military go to great effort to inculcate that selfless commitment, that sense of sacrifice, the ethos that surrounds going and doing that stuff and living together with each other 24/7, etc. Now, you could term that an enculturation, the focus being on a cult, but it certainly means that you have an identity or there's great effort invested in creating a military identity, and that's an identity that's imbued with great symbolism as well. So you have rank, you wear uniform, you go on parades, you ride horses, there are bands, and you have an ID card with the crown of the British Army and the British Army's sense, your rank, and your photo, importantly. So everything screams, this is me, I am military, I'm army. That happens at the outset and throughout the career. Now, as I think most of us will recognise, in relative terms, very little effort is spent on deconditioning people for their return to transition, for their return to Civvy St. Some people don't even get the 3-day resettlement workshop or career transition workshop, whatever it's called. So it is lamentably, and this has been recognised by the Defence Select Committee, underfunded, under-resourced, etc. Now, as we all know, your last day in service and your first day as a civvy is separated by the stroke of midnight, by 1 second. So the very thing that you told was rubbish, or some people are told was rubbish, the civil-military gap, the thing you're not, you're military, you're not civvy, you suddenly become. Not only that, but you become an outsider. In handing in your ID card, you therefore don't have that exclusive access to the wire, the club, the NAFI, the whatever it happens to be, the social life, etc. Now, I'm not suggesting this presents a difficulty for all those transitioning or all veterans or all military leavers. Some will treat the work instrumentally, which means that they'll see it just as something they do, a means to an end, a bit of training, a bit of fun, and then they'll go on and have very successful lives and careers in Civvy St. So this isn't a blanket suggestion that everyone experiences difficulties in transition. But I think, perhaps more than care to admit it, do face some level of difficulty, and what may be preventing them from admitting it is they perhaps don't know, or there's a stigma around owning up to needing help. The military rightly breeds and develops a sense of resilience. You couldn't go and do stuff that you have to do if you weren't resilient. But that military resilience is not necessarily the same as the resilience you need in transition and to adapt to life on the outside. And some people won't admit to it. And that, as I think we've seen in the press and as we know, albeit anecdotally because the statistics aren't collected, can lead to some veterans tragically taking their lives. So really what we're talking about is loss on many levels. Some have lost limbs, some have lost their minds, their psychological balance, if you like. Some have lost colleagues, not just because they've died, but they're leaving that camaraderie, they're leaving that social life, they're leaving that professional structure. They're leaving behind something that they found gave them meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of esteem, something that gave them value and they valued. And as I said, it gave them identity, it provided their social life, and of course it gave them a wage at the end of the month. And you'll all recognise that there are all the levels on Maslow's hierarchy covered there. So some people find themselves right at the very bottom, literally. So what does this all mean? I think what it means is that the military is more than just a job, and I think you'd all recognise that. I'm not going to labour that point. That therefore means that we need a better transition bridge than I think is currently in place, but also a different transition bridge than you might employ for other jobs. Now, what I'm advocating as one such possible element that we could look at in encouraging more of as part of the transition bridge is narrative counselling, and brackets narrative career counselling. What that means is that currently the statistics measure getting veterans into a job, any job. That's a start, of course it is. It earns them money, it may give them something to get up for, and it might give them a sense of purpose and value, but not always. And so it might not be the end of the transitional journey for them. What I'm advocating is that we need a more intelligent job finding service. And I term that narrative counselling, narrative career counselling, because I'll come and just expose the last bullet here. By going through some sort of narrative revision and looking at what you've done in the past before you joined the services, what drove you, what you liked doing, etc., 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 integrating that with your present circumstances. And those of us who've been medically discharged may be challenged in other respects, and so have to take an account of that present circumstance. And that may be to do with your qualifications, where you want to live, family circumstances, etc., and use that to forge a future that's not just a job, but a job that you can regain some of that meaning and purpose and settle the emotional aspects, the last sub-bullet there on the one above. I'm not going to go into any more detail about that, but that's quite a sort of complex package, but that's what the thesis is all about. Therefore, what I'm really advocating is a hybrid approach to transition, which is about the job, which is currently where the focus is in terms of resettlement. But we're becoming far more aware because of the Afghanistan and Iraq campaigns recently, of the physical needs around transition as well. But what we're less good at are the emotional needs. And that hybrid approach can involve all three. I think that's a much more powerful and beneficial way to look at resettlement. The UK is getting there, it recognises this, but it's certainly not there yet. Lots more work to be done. What I hope is my thesis feeds into that in part. Well, there we are. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And if you'd like to read the accompanying introductory piece, then there should be a link somewhere else on this page, and I'd be very grateful if you could have a look at that as well. Thank you.